There's no question in my mind at all that there is such a thing as white privilege. I believe that, and what I think people mistake what white privilege or black privilege or woman privilege really is. White privilege doesn't necessarily mean that whites are somehow superior. It just means that whites have there are certain well, it speaks for itself. There are certain privileges whites have that others don't. The thing is that the left only likes to talk about white privilege because, you know, lefties are very anti-white. White liberals, I've called them, white liberals are porch polar bears. You know, these are people who don't like to be white. These are people who, criticize whites. There is such a thing as white privilege, but there is also a thing called black privilege, woman privilege. I think every race and every gender on earth has a certain amount of privilege that others don't have. I certainly, as a black person, have privileges that white people certainly don't have. And many white people out there, well, all white people out there, have certain privileges that I don't have. Um, Let me talk about. I mean, many people know what privileges whites have. Like, whites are less likely to be viewed with any sort of suspicion when they go into a store, when they go into a school, whatever. I mean, good example, if let's say, for example, you go to a job interview and you may not be, dressed to the nines, you have a greater chance of having that washed aside and still getting the job if you're white, as opposed to if you were me, a black person. Now, I also, as I just said, have privileges. For example, it's very, very difficult for a white person to make black jokes, for example. That's one thing that blacks have as a privilege that whites don't have, and most minorities have. You make a joke about black people, you're racist, you're evil, you're bigoted, or whatever. It's like blacks, when it comes to stereotypes, are held in such high esteem. It's like, no, don't touch the black folk now. Don't touch the black. They are, oh, yes, we're so, it's like you have to walk on eggshells with the black folk and the minorities. And same with women. It's like, the slightest little piece of political incorrectness when it involves women, you could be branded as sexist, you could be charged with sexual harassment. Now, with white people, you can joke about white people all the time. You could call them white trash, you can call them crackers, you can call them honkies, you can call them whatever you. Who's gonna care about that? You walk into a store and you yell, fuck honkies. You think anyone's gonna really? I mean, yeah, you're a bit loud and obnoxious, but nobody's gonna really care. Not even the white folk are gonna care. They'll just look at you like, oh, okay. But you go into the store and you say the N word, nigger. Oh boy, you you'll probably get shot. So the thing is that white folks shouldn't be offended when people say that there is white privilege out there, because there is. Of course there is. Just like I'm ready to admit that there is black privilege out there. I have certain privileges as a black person, and especially depending on where I am, minorities in the GTA have lots of privileges that whites don't have. You know, let's take, for example, something like affirmative action. It's like you have to have a certain amount of minorities on billboards or in leadership positions. It's like, look at Jagmeet Singh. Let's be honest here. The other guy, the guy with Charlie Angus, he was tailor made to be NDP leader. The only reason the NDP chose Jagmeet Singh is because he has a turban. he's a turban on. It's like, oh, that's so adorable. Let's have this Sikh as NDP. You know, the NDP. It's just, they want this minority guy to say, oh, look at us, we got the minority guy. It's like, I think the NDP are using his race to make themselves look good and holier than thou. That's the only reason he got in. It's his race. He's got a turban on. He's young. He's got this big old nappy up beard. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, they ain't gonna choose the white Charlie Angle. Oh, that's boring. Let's get Jagmeet. That's the only reason he won. It depends on where you are in the world, where your privileges are inflamed more. So that's just, I just had to make this video because you got the white folks saying that there's no white privilege. You got the black folks saying there's too much white privilege and black people, their lives are hell. I'm just here to say both y'all are wrong as hell. There is white privilege, but black people also have certain privileges. They may not know it because they're too focused on their world being so miserable and oppressive. Women have privileges. Every race and every gender has a certain amount of privilege because of historical events and perceptions. That's just the way the world works. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say.